So the dev Q&A just took place, and we got a lot of interesting information that we're going to be talking in this video. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I want to say thank you, first of all, for all of the lovely birthday wishes the other day. Thank you guys so much. You guys are absolutely amazing and super supportive. With that being said, let's jump on in. We had the Q&A. There was a lot of interesting questions. I'm going to summarize only the main and interesting points. Everything else were kind of filler, so let's jump on into it. The first thing that we have on the list is skill-based matchmaking / MMR. We got a little bit of an update on why MMR's in the game, how it actually works, and what really determines how MMR is going to be putting you into matches, etc. And here's what they had to say. They said ranks aren't very good at matchmaking. They were just used for tracking your playtime and how much you play. They then went ahead to show us a little bit of a screenshot saying about the matchmaking rating. The number represents your skill. When you win, the number goes up. When you lose, the number goes down. If you play against someone else with the same number, it means that the system is working and is balanced in their eyes. They then went on to say if the survivor escapes alive, that is considered a win. If a killer kills an individual survivor, that is considered a win. And obviously, you have to do this 4 times for all of the different survivors. They said PSA, ranks are dead. Stop saying ranks are broken. Grades are not matchmaking. They went on ahead to then say, hypothetically, if you loop the killer for 7 hours and you heal 93 health states and you fix 10 generators and at the end you still die, this will still be counted as a loss. I have a lot of opinions on this. I'll continue to say, read what they said. They said on average, you only survive 50% of your games and killers only get 2 kills per game. And your MMR does not get affected if you escape through a hatch and it will appear as a null. A win-loss also works in this way. And then they showed another screenshot. They said when a survivor dies, the chances for the remaining survivors to escape goes down. And they go down when the second survivor dies, etc. This is to compensate for the death results are weighed based on the others. So if the first survivor die and then the second survivor die, but you still escape and it's not through the hatch and it's through the door or anything like that, your MMR will go up a little bit higher. They also mentioned that the ratings itself are not capped. Normally this is from 500 to 3000. And if your MMR is a little bit too high, they try to round you down to a nice high average like 1900 in order for you to find a game. They said that this number also is dynamic and changes throughout time. And then they said that the stats show that MMR really is more balanced than ranking, but obviously the player base have a different thing to say. I've seen so much content creators saying that MMR is terrible, and I've experienced some pretty bad games myself where sometimes I run into absolutely monstrous killers. Sometimes I run into killers that just pick up the game, even if I'm with my Swift or not with my Swift. A lot of content creators have also been saying that MMR has been the worst thing that they introduced into the game, and then there's a whole competitive versus non-competitive argument that goes on. Personally, I feel that the win and loss just doesn't make sense. I did read on the forums post, however, Peanut saying that it's much more complicated than this, so I'm not sure why they would say this information on the stream unless it was just given so we can understand it a little bit more. But judging solely on if you escape or if you kill is not the right way to go whatsoever. You can think of obviously some great examples. If you were to hook everybody twice but everyone still escapes, you're considered at a loss. If you loop the killer, as they mentioned in their own example, for 20 generators and fixed, unhooked 30 survivors, whatever the case is, then you still lose if you end up dying. This doesn't accurately judge skill, and I think there's so much that they can incorporate into the coding to compensate for that. Obviously, it's easier said than done. I don't know how hard it actually would be to change and to adjust the prerequisites, but judging it solely based on win-loss does not work. And I thought they learned that when they gave the PTB when MMR just came out years ago almost. And they did it that way, and it just didn't really work. So I'm not sure if there's hidden factors that are incorporated with the MMR, but if there isn't, this is not the way to go. There's other things that need to be taken into consideration. How long you last in chases, how much generator repairs are you doing, how altruistic are you, etc. And I think their major fear of this is that it becomes too much again like the emblem system, and that way throughout the match you will naturally do these things. But I feel like if they put it on certain thresholds, for example, if you were chased by the killer for the entire match, like let's say 600 seconds, then in turn, it would be like, all right, maybe we can boost your MMR or make it a little bit more balanced or even in the middle, because obviously you did more than the other survivors, rather than the emblem system where it's like, okay, you got chased for 45 seconds, boom, you have iridescent, etc. Whatever the case may be. It's a whole discussion for another time, but that's just my opinion and the way that I feel about the MMR. Let's go ahead and continue talking about some other things. Boon Totems are going to be getting some changes. We obviously had a lot of drastic opinions on how Boon Totems operated. I personally said that Boon Totems definitely do need changes, and I think it's a little bit stronger than they anticipated. However, everybody was using the Boon Totems in the PTPs because that was the only thing available, so some of the balancing that you may have seen and the accessibility to the Boon Totems were skewed because of how easy it was to use, and when it comes into live, you'll see those numbers drastically go down and it might be a lot more manageable. So it's interesting to balance, but nonetheless, we have Boon Totem statistics. So they said Boon effects no longer stack, which is huge. Blessing a Hex Totem now takes 24 seconds, which again is a huge change. I personally think that one's a little bit too long. They said that the Boon Totem radius is reduced to 24 meters. So instead of the standard that it was at, it's now 24 meters, which is a 25% decrease in reduction of area. They also then talked about Hex Blood Favor, and it says it now activates on damage states, and they also said it's now based on the survivor's position. So really interesting things. So that is pretty interesting to say the least. Those are going to be the changes. We're obviously going to have to play test them and see what they're exactly like. We might get the PTP on this Tuesday or probably next Tuesday. No confirmed ETA, but interesting nonetheless to see what's actually going to happen with those Boon Totems. They did talk about a little bit about the balancing of Boon Totems, saying that they're reusable because they're a small safe area for the survivors and they don't really change too much of the core game or the flow of the match, whereas Hex Totems, and why you can cleanse them and they never come back, messes up a lot more with the core of the game and how the flow of the match goes, which I agree with. It makes sense. This is just a nice small safe haven for the survivors, while Hex Totems are map wide and they really do affect the game. They then went ahead and spoke about Pinhead voice lines. We obviously spoke about this with Matthew Cote as well, and just like Matthew, they said that they couldn't comment on that. So nonetheless, interesting news there with Pinhead. It's not a bug. It probably won't be coming back, which is a shame. The next question on the list was that, are there any plans to reworking the Legion? And they said Legion is on the short list. There's no ETA. They're just looking at him, and they're in the very early stages, and more is to come about this. So that's interesting. Legion might be getting some love in the near future, maybe an add-on pass, etc. They then spoke about more emotes, as in the gestures in the game, and they said nothing really ticks off the box of what they're looking for, that they've messed with this concept a lot, but they haven't really found anything that would be not only good for communication, but also balanced in the sense that it doesn't give away too much information. They also said nothing memey, like no flossing, is going to be coming into the game, so that's good to hear, but as of the future, they don't really have any plans just yet. The next question on the list was, will we get a Trickster style of a map? And they said they would love to have something like that. They love the hell out of that idea, but currently there are no plans to bring in a Trickster map. Obviously, Polly and I also mentioned this in the interview with Matthew Cote, and he pretty much said the same thing. And they said if they had a chance, they would, but currently they want to explore some other maps, so we will see what ends up happening. The next question, which I think is really awesome, was, will other mid-chapters be this big? And I hint that since, McLean was leaving the dev team and everything kind of came in the same circulation, they tried to push as much as they can as a little bit of a farewell gift. And that's along the lines of what they said. They said that this was kind of the perfect storm where a lot of the changes that they had planned came at the same time. And because of this, we were able to get this big chunky patch. They said that they have a lot more killers that are going to be getting touched, just not more like specific overhauls, but more spread across. Similarly, how we saw Trapper Plague, Death Slinger, and Spirit being changed all at once, and just minor changes, add-on changes, etc., rather than a full rework such as the Freddy reworks that we received. So something like that might be happening. So they said character overhauls are not out of the question, but we're probably going to see more things like that. It won't be as bulky with like Boon Totems and new mechanics, etc., but we might see something like that. They then went ahead to talk about Twitch shirts. So, this is for the streamers that already have the Twitch shirts, and if you're trying to get a Twitch shirt, you have to be picked out by Dead by Daylight themselves to obtain this in the game. I have one, and a few other amazing streamers have them as well. They said that Twitch shirts are going to be coming for every single character to show some more representation for your mains. So this is absolutely amazing. Really happy about this, and really happy with the steps that Dead by Daylight are taking to show that representation as well. There's a lovely, lovely segment in part 2 of our interview with Matthew Cote where he gets a little bit more into representation into the game and the strives that they try to do to make it work for everyone, essentially. And it's really awesome. Next, some pretty interesting news is about the Prestige system. We obviously know that since the 5th year anniversary event, we got a little bit of teases on the Prestige system coming into the game, a brand new one, and they said right now the Prestige system is not rewarding whatsoever. It's really bad, and it's out of date, and it needs some adjustments. But they are bringing in a brand new Prestige system that's coming on out. It's going to be so much more fun, so much more rewarding, and they're super excited about it. More details to come soon. Also ties into a question about reduction of the grind. They said that they know it's bad, and the Prestige system will adjust it. They can't talk about it now. Soon TM. So that is really exciting stuff. I am really, really excited to see what that new Prestige system is going to be like and how that's going to balance out and play into the game. They didn't talk about practice modes with bots. They said, you know, are we going to be seeing this? And they said when they got such a positive feedback from the bots in the tutorials, they have been looking for ways to use bots outside of the tutorials, so they might be working on a practice mode behind the scenes. I asked a question that they actually answered about Boon Totems and Scorched Hooks. Are they going to be coming out more? Is this a new feature, essentially? They said, yes, absolutely. These are going to be coming out much more in the game, so we can expect that. Really awesome news there. They then spoke about more options to unlink some of those legendary cosmetics that you have, or the sets, I should say, to make it a little bit more flexible. A lot of people hate the sets. So they said they're working on the clipping on some of the non-licensed characters to work better. They said some of the characters that they make these sets for obviously get locked into place because they make it as one full cosmetic. They don't really expect them to work with other cosmetics. Obviously, there's been a lot of bugs, and people have been using them to unlock these sets, and they actually make some really awesome creations. So I think they may have seen that and said, hey, you know what? It actually works. If we can clean this up, maybe we can actually unlock some of these linked cosmetics, and more for the licensings, they can keep them locked, which is really cool. They then spoke about cross progression. We got a little bit of an update on that. They said obviously they can't share much now, but they're working on this with their Switch partners right now. They said they know there's a lot of Switch players out there, but no announcement for the platforms just yet, or other platforms, I should say. So that's a shame. It's not really up to DBD. It's more up to Sony and Microsoft, and you know how stubborn that they can be. So it is a shame on that end, but hopefully we'll get some more information about cross progression sometime soon. They said any hints on what killers you're looking into next, and they said they're on a bit of a break of looking at killers right now. Next, we're more than likely going to see some survivor improvements, which is really cool. I'm excited to see that. They said they have killers on their short list that they want to look at. Obviously, Legion is on the list, and the next big one is Ghostface. So Ghostface and Legion might be getting some changes, which is about time. Ghostface's power has just been so wonky, and I'm so happy they're finally going to be looking into it and giving him an add-on pass. So excited for that. They didn't talk about a recycle system or a crafting mode, as we always talked about, where you could, you know, break your items and reuse them for something else. And they said they thought about it. No plans to bring it into the game. And one of the major things is that so much people have so much items in the game already that it might cause some issues. We already made a whole video talking about the crafting system and how they could get it working and what they can do to really make it work. So it will be interesting to see. They then talked about if we are going to see more buffed up survivor perks or perks in general. And they said, yes, there are going to be lots of nerfs and lots of buffs to perks. They then talked about more on the Mori mechanics. They said they're still working on it. It's a really big thing, so it's pretty hard working on it. No teases just yet. They then asked about graphic options for console players. Will we ever be seeing those? To be more specific, we always talk about this. And they said, sadly, we finally got an answer for this, really. There's no plans for that in Dead by Daylight. They said most of the games that really benefit from this are GPU-based games, where you can affect the lighting and the shadows, etc., and then it will reduce the load on the GPU. However, DVD affects the CPU more than the GPU, which is crazy to think about, really. And they said that there's a lot of things in the actual core that we need to adjust to do this, so no, we're probably not going to be seeing that. Next on the list, we got some stats on the kill rate of killers. They were actually supposed to give us the pick rate and the kill rate, but this is what we got, so it's still pretty awesome. So we can see that every killer is kind of in that nice range of 50% being their average, and this is from July all the way to September. Obviously, the Cenobites a little bit skewed because they just came out. Freddy is still the strongest killer in the game, even after all the changes that they decided to give to him, according to their own stats on kill rate, that is. And the weakest killer is the Nurse, and obviously you can't really say Nurse is the weakest killer because stats don't tell the full story, and that's kind of what they were hinting at. But we can still see some of the lower performing killers on the list, such as the Clown, the Plague, the Demogorgon, etc. It's really interesting to see the Pig all the way up there. We always talk about pig changes and pig buffs, but it's interesting that she's all the way up there. Next, they mentioned the early game mechanic. We were teased about this a little bit on it coming into the game, and it was in the design stages, etc. We didn't learn much about it, and that was it. We never heard anything about it. So their answer to this was no, it's not coming whatsoever. They said that they went through a lot of prototypes and a lot of designs, but they couldn't really find something to make the game better, and every time they got to that state, they realized it doesn't make the game better. They said it made the game worse, sadly, because I was really looking forward to something like this. They said some of the ideas, however, have been prototyped in some other way. They said some of those ideas are, now incorporated in the new Mori system they're working on, so that'll be quite interesting to see what they're going to do, but sadly, no early game mechanic. They then spoke about the chat box coming on to console. They said that is not happening, so we'll probably never see it, sadly. They then talk about loadouts, where you can save your loadouts, and similar to, I believe, PBD Mobile has that, if I'm not mistaken, and you could just quickly go through loadouts that you have. They said it's on their wish list, but no plans for this. And finally, the last main question that I have highlighted is about face camping and punishments for face camping. Obviously, a lot of people have a big problem with this, especially the newer players coming on in and thinking that's the only strategy they could do. And they said they don't like how appealing it is to some of the killers. They said in theory it could be countered by just working on generators, but in practice and when it actually happens, most survivors, try to save their friends if they're altruistic, or they don't really think, oh, let's just quickly work on gens and punish the killer for this. So they're looking into a way to really fix this. However, the issue that they've stumbled upon multiple times is that when trying to punish face camping, it accidentally punishes in proxy camping, which they're all for, and I agree proxy camping can be used as a decent strategy depending on your playstyle. Don't go at me in the comments, but it's true. It can be beneficial in certain situations and certain aspects. So they're not really trying to get rid of that, but they're trying to punish face camping, and it's hard to thread the needle when it comes down to it. They said they tried this multiple times, messed it up multiple times, and we even tested one of those things on the PTP recently, and it just never came in. They said they have a brand new idea that they're really excited for, that they currently are testing and designing, so they might be finally fixing face camping. So that is pretty awesome, and that is pretty much wrapping up that long dev Q&A. There was a lot of good questions in there, and those were the best ones that I came up with to highlight for you guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Share this with your friends to let them know about all of the cool things that they mentioned in the Q&A. Definitely a lot of interesting things in there, and I would love to hear your opinions on all of this. Subscribe if you are brand new for more Dev by Daylight content just like this. We're going to be posting a lot more, and we got some cool things. The fan-made chapter is going to be coming back this weekend, and the Matthew Cote Part 2 interview is coming on up. Thank you again for all the lovely birthday wishes and all of the love and support. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the vlog.